doing?
Yeah, so what's going on with you?
Everything. Nothing. I don't know how to answer that question, but a lot. Let's see. Just got back from Boston. Like I was saying, we were up there at Ned Devine's for a weekend. This is, I guess I should preface, right now with It's All Good. That's been a band about a year and a half now.
And that's your cover band?
That's the cover band, top 40 covers. But we just added an original song for the first time, maybe 2 weeks ago. We started playing it live, and it's been going really well. So we're filming a music video for it soon. Have like a whole choreographer and like a dance department, like all this stuff that's going to be going. Am I too far away from this mic?
No, you're good.
Okay. All that stuff's going to be in there as well. So it'll be cool. We have a lot of fun ideas for it. But that's been going well. And but anyway, yeah, we were up in Boston, performing up there for 2 nights, and it was really awesome. Really, really fun time. So it was a good way to end the summer.
So how did so I know you as an original artist, right?
Yeah,
When we first met, I think you were doing original music. You had the band Wave Runner.
Yeah, definitely.
And I really want to say that we probably met at like Dewey Beach Music Conference, maybe like
Pop
2015
Fest,
or
Dewey
something
Beach
like
Pop
that.
Fest or something like that.
Something
like
back like 5 years ago or so.
Mm-hmm.
What made you transition from original to covers?
So when Wave Runners started, I was playing drums in a band called This Is the Apocalypse. It was a metal band, and that was what I was touring with. And so I started Wave Runner as a side thing. Then when I finished playing in This Is the Apocalypse, I really wanted to still play, but I didn't want to be touring. That was the biggest thing that was tough, was being gone for 3 months at a time or 2 months at a time, and then back for 2 weeks and then gone again. You can't really have any sort of normal life.
Right.
So a friend of mine, Victoria Watts, at the time, we were started playing music together, and I started playing drums for her. And that
for like the Victoria Watts band.
For the Victoria Watts band, yeah. So it was me and 2 other guys, Marat, who's actually in It's All Good Now. So eventually I really started liking the cover thing, and eventually when we kind of went our way and Victoria went her way, it ended up leading to us meeting with Starleigh, the agency, and we talked to them as Wave Runner, and just basically we're like, look, we've been an original band this whole time. Oh, we'd also gone through some member changes at the time, so it was kind of like, all right, what do we do with this? And we were like, look, we've been an original band this whole time, but we know like 200 covers. And Wave Runner had done a bunch of covers and videos and music videos for him. So I sent them to him. So it gave me really good material to put out from the very, very, start of trying to work with agencies. And this guy, Gary, he owns Starleigh Entertainment from Baltimore. Awesome guy. He took us on and put us as like a really high priority, which was awesome. So right away, before we had ever even played a show, we probably had 50 shows booked, just because he would call me all the time and be like, you guys better be as good as you are in the video, and like that's all he would like, because he had really barely seen us live, only like little clips, but he was like, if you can get to the quality of these videos, then we're going to be able to keep booking you. So we just practiced, and so at that point we still had Wave Runner and It's All Good, kind of. I was still planning on doing some original music, but then eventually all the members were different other than myself. And so it just ended up being a thing where it was like, you know what? We should invest all of our time into It's All Good, because we're playing so much. We're going to be able to build a fan base rapidly just because of this sheer amount of shows that we're able to play. And like really cool shows as well. Like we got our very first year, we got booked at the Hard Rock Cafe on 4th of July. And that was like a really good thing for us, because it's right in Baltimore, right on the Inner Harbor during the fireworks. So it was little things like that. They were like, okay, if we monetize this and really focus on this group, not only are we going to be able to build a fan base, but also we're going to be able to bring in a decent amount of money to reinvest into what we thought at that point was going to be Wave Runner. But then eventually we were like, let's just focus all on this. And then once we have a fan base, we have somebody to release a single to. Now, when we release this single, we have, I would say a happy fan base of people that like us as a cover band, but are excited to hear, an original song. Yeah, exactly. Right. And when I wrote this first original song, it was my main goal was to make it sound like a cover song. So I wanted a song that when people hear it, they feel like they've heard it before, in a way, not in like a plagiarizing way, in a, oh, well, I know how to sing along to this, because the hook is just very, very simple. Right. And I have plenty of other songs that we can do later, but our first song we wanted to show the public, we wanted to make it so that you almost just feel like it's another cover song because you can sing along to it after hearing the chorus once.
Right.
So there was a lot that went in. If we're going to release an original song, we got to do it correctly. So yeah.
Word. And so is Starleigh helping that, like helping with the release behind your original project, or
so
not?
a little bit. Starleigh is mostly just our booking agency, but Gary, because he's taken us on specifically as one of his bands, he's really helped out in, a lot of those other aspects as a manager and stuff like that as well. So that's been really good. We're going to put our heads together and try to figure out how to release it. It's been a little while since they've done an original release, so it might be something that we're going to release this one, and then our next goal is to have one original per set, and then eventually shop an album out. I have enough demos that we could shop something out, but right now my goal is to just focus on the one and see what happens. And we definitely, he's helping with a lot of the we're going to see what kind of radio play we can get it on in the areas, especially since we have such an active schedule around Baltimore and stuff. If a Baltimore schedule plays it, or a Baltimore station plays it, there's always dates coming up that people could see us in the area and stuff.
Right.
So
Yeah, because they even host the whole the local station there. I can't remember what the call letters are right now, but they do the whole music on Canton, all that stuff. It's hosted by the station.
Yeah. There's a bunch of stuff like that, Hometown Heroes, all those different shows. So, but yeah, we'll look into that. But I think when people hear the song, long term, our goal is to obviously get it out to as many people as we can,
Right.
and I think it has that potential. Obviously, you hope that and say that with
Yeah,
every song you release.
time you release.
But what's cool about this and doing it from the cover band perspective, last week in Boston, it was our third time ever playing it as a full band, and we felt confident on it, tight on it, and we're playing it in front of 1,100 people. Now, if we were just an original artist playing this song for the third time ever, that would be unfathomable under most situations. Mm-hmm. But we're already second set in. The crowd is hyped. They know us. I've introduced the band members. They feel like they have that personal connection. Now, I bring up that, hey, we've been a band for a year now. After the shows, people always come up to me and say, hey, when are you going to write an original song? And then I say, Mom, I tell you, we're not doing that right now. Or make some sort of joke just to bring them in and then say that we have one, and the response, it's so wild to just see people so excited afterwards because of the way we've been able to implement it. Whereas when I've been an original artist before, and solely original artist, and not that there's anything bad about it, but it's you're building that, you're starting with no one there and building it up, and now I'm playing for 3 people, and now I'm playing for 5. And we've done a lot of that too, but it's nice that as a cover band, we can go to these clubs that already have a built-in crowd and then all of a sudden play an original song. That would be a hard thing to do if we were trying to start, from square one with original music. So
I definitely want to ask more questions kind of about that and your mentality around it. Just for anyone listening to the podcast who maybe is kind of feeling that same way. I'm an original artist, and every time I do a show, I don't have an audience to get it to. Mm-hmm. The only audience that I have is a digital audience. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because I've noticed that there's more and more artists that don't need to perform out live. They only have a digital audience first.
Lil Nas X just had the longest #1 single.
Yeah, so it's it's totally fine to just have a digital audience and then go perform shows. That's totally fine. It works, especially in 2019. But yeah, I am curious to see, especially if anyone's looking around I thought about getting into the cover band scene, because I know some people do get into the cover band scene, but maybe don't experience, they can't book the same rooms that This All Good could be getting in. Because see, I remember when your band started, because Gary hit me up because I was doing the entertainment booking for Documents. And that, so it's nice when you have someone who kind of has some plugs that are in to be able to get you into those rooms.
If he calls, it's going to be something legit.
Yeah, you kind of know what you're buying.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
as a talent buyer, you know what you're purchasing.
Yep, exactly.
So has that been beneficial for you? Do you like that? Do you still have autonomy? Tell me what that experience is like.
Specifically what, the booking agent?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I've heard, obviously, horror stories and great stories about different booking agents and stuff, but ours, personally, Gary, has been awesome. We were actually talking to a couple different agencies and ended up going with Gary specifically because it felt like he was putting us we weren't just going to be another band on his roster. He wanted to invest in us because he knew long term there was potential. And so that felt really good. For me, during Wave Runner and the band I was in before that, Me Equals You, I did all of the booking, and we would do, lots of like small tours and stuff like that. We're not really making much money, but it's more the experience. And that was fun when I was younger, but I'm 30 now, and now that is not fun for me. I've done that and like experienced that. Now I would much rather just like
let somebody else do it.
Yeah, he sends me a text every day of like the new shows that are booked, and I put him in the calendar, and then I get a contract from him, and then that's it. And it's like it's super easy. It also is nice because he can ask for guarantees that I might not have been able to pull myself because I don't have the, like you were saying, the weight behind it. If a agency is or if like a buyer is going to book us through him, they know, okay, well, anyone that he's booking is at least this level, so it's going to be worth the cost. And also he just, or I guess him, but also just agencies in general, if they're working well for you, for me, it's plenty worth to give the percentage that they charge or whatever to know that you're going to have guaranteed dates and also dates that pay well. Now, he'll tell us, sometimes we'll try to take these dates that might not pay as well. We're like, yeah, this would be fun. But he's like, here's the thing. If you guys want to work 7 days a week, I'll book you 7 days a week, but you won't be able to talk. You won't have any energy ever.
Right.
It's better to do every Friday and Saturday really, really well, and then we have our 7-day residency that's easy, than to try to book all these. Sometimes I think artists, especially in the beginning when they're trying to make money and stuff, they want to book as many shows as they can because for one reason it's you're learning a lot, but also the clout that comes with it. I played this many shows this year and everything, and that is fun, and there is definitely a good thing to that hustle, but you got to be careful that you don't burn yourself out because anything can become tedious once you've done it a million times. I mean, I used to love recording, and I still do. I love producing, but I have to sit down and put myself in a certain mindset to sit down and produce, whereas when I first started and I was just hungry for it all the time, I would wake up and like run to my computer to do it and stuff like that, whereas now it's a much more methodical kind of like, okay, let's make this mix sound really good. But it's a completely different mindset. So anything, especially with gigs, I was telling you when I walk in, the hardest thing right now for me is my voice is habitually tired all the time. I mean, and I take as good care of it as I can given the circumstances, but when you're singing
3-hour sets.
3-hour sets every single night. And for me, the singing isn't even what the worst is. It's the talking. It's the hosting in between, the talking to the audience and talking to the audience afterwards. Because half of me, really needs to save my voice and get back, but the other half knows this is the best time for me to be able to get people to follow us online and all that stuff, is to make that connection and shake their hand personally after the show and all that stuff. So, there's that balance of so what I've tried to do is I don't talk to people really in between sets at all. I just go do my thing, rest in between, and then after the show, if they're still there, if they stayed all night, I'll talk to as many people as I can. Yeah, but when the DJ's playing and when the music's loud, that's just when you're gonna blow your voice out. So that's a thing that has made it though a little less enjoyable as a career, is when every gig you have to. When I'm a drummer, I could have nothing against drummers. I mean, that's a whole other thing. But when I was drumming, I could have 102 fever, 103 fever, and still like make it through the set. Feel like crap, and make it. But like, if I'm having bad allergies as a singer, it's like
it's horrible.
You're
you can't
screwed.
really do anything.
Yeah, because even if you make it through tonight, tomorrow you might be real screwed because you pushed yourself the night before.
And you're the front man, so like
you're
it
dancing.
comes across. The energy comes across for sure. Just to like kind of recap for people that are listening, I know that was like a whole lot of stuff.
Sorry, I go on tangents.
No, it's cool. So really, I guess some of the overarching themes is kind of like, for you, decide what you want to do. Like, if you want to get into, if you are in the cover world, you have the option of doing it kind of independently, which Aaron has done. The whole like booking thing, and then there is the option of getting an agent, and what was important, like a key that he had mentioned, was finding an agent that is really invested in you. This seems like some of the a lot of the success rather that It's All Good has experienced is due to the investment and commitment that Gary has had, in particular to the band. So you definitely want to make sure that like when you're aligning yourself with someone, that they're invested in you as much as you're invested in the company. So it's not just kind of this one directional trade where it's, oh yeah, we got you in rooms and we're getting our cut, and then when you get burnt out, you're kind of done kind of deal. You don't want to get in that situation, and you want to have someone that's going to prioritize you and put you in the right rooms.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the flip side of that, you also want to make sure you are a band that's giving the product that can play these kinds of rooms. A lot of people, assume in their mind like, well, yeah, I feel good, or even sometimes we get in the mindset like, this is the best I've ever sounded, so like obviously I should be able to. But the reality is sometimes you have to ask yourself, well, what are the other bands in this room doing on average? And if that's the average, even if it seems like, okay, so if they all have crazy light shows and you don't, well, it might seem like, well, I don't need a crazy light show. But if all the bands in these rooms that you're playing have one readily available and you don't, well, then that means that the light show is the bare minimum now. The light show is the standard. Yeah, exactly. So you're going to have to match that. And when we started It's All Good, that was another thing that we did, was we invested a lot of money back into the equipment right away before we started investing it into our pockets, just because we knew the better equipment we have, the better shows we're going to be able to book. If we have a really nice PA system, now we can get booked at bigger venues that are requiring us to provide sound without having to necessarily hire a whole sound company and take a big cut out of our pay. We can just hire a sound guy that can come and work on our X32 and our show's already on there and stuff. So. And then to backtrack with what you were saying about the booking agent, actually a third option, because you can self-book, you can go through an agent, but there are options to do a little bit of both. There are agents that will do like one-offs or like single contracts for venues. I know some agencies will even do, okay, so say I'm your booking agency and I book you at some nightclub. Now, your contract with me is for, let's say, 2 years at that nightclub. So all it is anytime you book through that nightclub for the next 2 years, it comes through me. Or if you didn't book it through me, say you booked it through another agency because now they're exclusive, I still get my cut until those 2 years are up, but just from that specific venue. Right. So it might be beneficial to look, okay, maybe I can get on an agency just to do some of these venues or rooms that I might have trouble getting in on my own, but understand that they're going to want that like couple year commitment, and rightfully so. It takes about 2 years to really build a band, up into something, and it would stink to be a booking agent and book somebody once, and then they just book themselves there forever, and now you don't get your cut. So it's definitely important. But I think that's the third option, is you can have a little bit of both. You just got to be smart with it and understand, what can I do myself and what can I bring an agency on for. But for me, I have not yet had a bad experience with using it. I've never wished I wasn't using agent.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's so great to like hear the difference, because even like when I dipped my toes in the cover band waters, so for me personally, I was anti booking agent. Not anti in the sense of like, oh, like this is evil. Just anti in the sense that I wanted to make sure that I had all the connections. Like for sure. For me, it was more of like okay, if third option, if I have to go through, why would I want to do that when I could get it myself? Now, granted, the answer to that question is because it's hard. Like, the real answer is because it's hard. A lot of times there are, like, quote-unquote gatekeepers to certain venues, and oftentimes that is a booking agent or a booking company. And so it can make it difficult for you to get into that room. So the amount of legwork that you need to put in to get in can be rough. Also, if you want to go about it that way, it will behoove you to become very good friends with everyone who owns the agencies. So one of the things that I will do, in case you are interested, is I will provide links to the agencies that I'm familiar with. Like, I know that there's Midnight Sun, that's Rick Green. There's Starfield, Billy Stott. There's Starleigh McGarry. There's Frank Annunziata, AEM.
So AEM actually books us when we play New Jersey and stuff like that. We're not on AEM, but sometimes booking agencies will work together. So, like Frank will book us up in New Jersey through Gary, and then Gary will book one of his bands down in Baltimore or DC or in one of those areas where Gary might have, one of those rooms is his room, so the only way to get into it is through him. So even in the agencies, they're kind of doing that with themselves. So they're kind of trading bands back and forth and stuff.
Right. So there is that, and I will provide you guys with the resources if you do want to go through the tedious and strenuous work of building relationships with the individuals. Like, I know everyone's name because I built relationships with them, and it took time. And probably much like yourself, you have agencies coming after you. You have agencies who are like, hey, we want your band. We want, and so that's always a great position to put yourself in. Like, one great thing is that if you do manage to get yourself into a room that you're quote unquote not supposed to be in, like let's say you manage to get yourself into the casino circuit, you will get the attention of agencies, and then they will come to you and they will try to like commandeer you, like, hey, why don't you kind of sign with us or let us handle some of your bookings or whatever it is like that. That's a great position to put yourself in, because then you have kind of leverage and you have some negotiating power.
Absolutely.
And even if you are deciding, like myself, to not go that route, it is still always a great thing, always, to be respectful and kind and try to learn as much as you can. Like, for me, I definitely took a lot of time. Like, hey, let me emails and phone calls and, like, stopping up to people's offices or whatever just to get to know them on a personal level. Because I'm like, how did you get where you got? How did you get here where you control the entrance to all of these different places and stuff? And when you can kind of work in that realm too, it opens up some things for you. Unfortunately, this is just a disclaimer, right? This is just music in general. Music in general can seem like it has a lifetime to it. Like there is a limited lifespan of when you can be hot or not. That lifespan in the cover band world can tend to be shorter, just because you're singing the same songs as someone else is singing. And if someone is younger and they're going to sing in front of 21-year-olds, 21-year-olds would like to see someone that's relatively close to their age or looks like they're close to their age singing to them, rather than like someone who's 45.
Absolutely.
And
if you are 45, when you see the bands they're still dressed very hip, and they have, the ones that are doing well have kept themselves in very good shape.
Yeah.
They're all, you know what I mean?
Chris in the Noise, for instance,
exactly,
is a great example.
Exactly,
Chris looks phenomenal.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. That's what you have to be able to do. To backtrack a little before we get to another topic, another thing, instead of saying like, you don't even have to say no to these agencies. You could say, I'm not interested in doing some sort of exclusive contract, but hey, if you ever have any one-off dates, I would be, and that's a good way to keep in contact, because maybe they will book you for one event or for something like that. Also, so say you're in a band and you decide, you know what, I am going to do all the booking myself. I'm going to do it. I think it is good to then. It's not a bad thing to pay yourself that agency fee, whether it's 10%, 15%, whatever you in the band think is reasonable. But if you're doing all that work, it's not unreasonable to say for every date, we're going to take 10% off the top, and that's going to just go to me for like working on these. Now, if it's your band, maybe less, whatever you would think is reasonable. But I don't think if you're doing all that extra work, I don't think that that's necessarily an unreasonable thing, as long as, you know, you're upfront with your bandmates. You don't want them to all of a sudden be like, wait, you weren't booking for free. You were like just, but I also think if you're with reasonable musicians, they're going to understand, well, yeah, this takes a lot of extra time, and I'm able to make all this money without having to do any work because of what you're doing. Right. Why would I not want to compensate you for that? So, and if they're not cool with that, then maybe have a talk with them or reevaluate them.
Yeah, no, that's a big thing. It is, because it's not an issue. At least it wasn't an issue so much for original music. When we jumped into and I'm going to explain, when you jump into a certain world, a certain tier in the cover band area, the money is, if I'm being candid, I think it's a little absurd. It's,
so, to just say it hypothetically, I can make in I can make in 2 weekends what I made in a month of touring in a large cover band. I mean, not in a large metal band that was playing all over the world. And so, but it's because a lot of these places have a built-in audience. So when you think, okay, wait, this place is willing to pay a cover band X amount of dollars, because they're bringing in way more. And that's the other thing, as you start to build a draw as a cover band, then when people know you're going to bring people, like if the Amish Outlaws, if you're not familiar with who they are,
dope cover band.
They're awesome. And actually, one of the guys in it was Amish, and he went away on Rumspringer and then ended up starting this band, and they are awesome. And they make a ton of money because any bar that books them knows when they're there, it's going to be packed. You're going to make your money back. So, and that's part of the difference between that and original music, because it is much harder.
Two different things.
Yeah, and as an original artist, here's the thing. People want to hear music that they want to hear. And if you have really, really good original music, you might turn them on to that. But if you're a cover band, they know they're going to hear songs that they want to hear, and they might hear them in another way. For me as a cover artist, my favorite thing is writing the arrangements. Our third set is a 48-minute long mashup of one thing. It's one track. We just start it and it goes straight through. And that was so much fun for me to write because I'm not an original artist, but
you get to express your creativity.
I'm making my original in a way that no one has ever heard it before. You're gonna be able to hear these songs, and so there are lots of fun things you can do with that. But yeah, it's the money in the cover band industry is very, very, very tempting.
It's lucrative.
Yes, it's a real job, as in you can work and make a decent living. But because of that, there is so much more to it, because you go from being a band in Wave Runner, you're a band that's making, with all your merch sales and all that stuff, you're making, a couple grand a year, to your cover band and you're making six figures easily. Easy. And it's like, oh, okay, so now all this is like a whole new, like, okay, this person getting paid and this person getting paid and this, and sound guy and lights guys and like whoever is there. So there's so much more money flowing, and I handle all that too. So it's just me and my accountant. So it's a lot more work and behind the scenes things that people don't realize go into. People think, oh, cover band, that's super easy. Well, no, you have to memorize like 200 songs. You have to play all the time for really long periods of time. We were actually we were at Feggers Island in Ocean City a couple weeks ago, and the bass player from All Time Low was there, and we got to talk with him for a while and stuff like that. And he was like, dude, we play all the time, and the most songs we ever play is like half of what you guys just did, like 20 songs tops. And he's like, that's insane. So like even at that level, they look at like
90 minutes is like, if you're doing an original set and it's 90 minutes long, that's long. Extremely long.
Yeah, that's
extremely long. Then when you jump into the cover band world, especially if you're outside of Maryland, like if you're in Maryland or Jersey or whatever, they can 4-hour sets.
Yeah, 180 is like average.
Yeah,
average. And so and also the other thing with cover music is you're not, I mean, I can change the keys to be in my range and stuff a little better, but you're not. Yeah, oh, absolutely. And we tune a half step down. We tune everything, like on recording stuff we'll play standard, but everything live, it saves so much just from our voices. Like what was your highest note is now like a little bit more
everything's kind of in your tessatura.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I do a ton of Michael Jackson. So we have 3 singers and it's all good. And we luckily all have very vastly different voices. Murat is a baritone, but he has an incredible falsetto. And Johnny can just hit Panic at the Disco kind of like really high notes. And I'm like right in the middle, where I'm a tenor, but because my voice is always tired, my head range is not what it used to be, but it doesn't have to be anymore because I have these guys for right now.
Right.
Which is good. But I'm still singing like all the Michael Jackson stuff, all that stuff that's still way up in that register. So people don't, whereas if I was writing, I'd probably write it a little lower, but too low, it doesn't have the same effect because now the verse is too low. And so there's a little bit of that, and that people don't realize. We host live karaoke every Sunday at Charlie Tap House in Wilmington, and we have a huge list for people to do karaoke from, and we just have to have like a ton of songs memorized. People don't realize that like that's a lot of work. It's hard to memorize my own songs' lyrics, let alone like a million other songs. You know what I mean? I try to do it as like a story. You try to tell your, like, what is this song actually talking about? Oh, okay. Well, once you think of it in story form, it's easier to memorize. Easier. But yeah, so
I'm admittedly horrible at remembering the lyrics to songs.
So bad.
Like all the time.
Yeah.
I'm like turning to people like,
yeah.
yo, what? That's a look. There was a look I have with the band members, like,
dude. And especially during the real set, sometimes you zone out, and then you get to a chorus, and you're like, did I already do verse 2?
That? Yeah.
Did I do verse 2? Am I verse 3?
Yeah.
Like, but so that happens as well. But with music, it's easier to remember because at a certain musical level, you're not really thinking about the chords, at least.
And it repeats.
But also you can kind of hear where the chords are going. Oh, now we're at a 4, we're at a 5.
Yeah.
And that's also a really good benefit of cover music, real quick, is your ear will get so good because as you start playing with random players and like, especially with what we do at karaoke when we call out songs, you're hearing it and learning, oh, well, there's 4, 5, 1, 3. And we're, you know what I mean, playing through that. And so your ear gets really attuned to playing lots of different styles of music with people. And so, but with lyrics, you can't really do that. You can't just like be like, oh, well, this is now the verse where I sing about this booty or, you know what I mean, whatever it is. So especially when it's, we do Shake That Thing Young Annabelle. We do that, and our bass player Murat sings it, and like the lyrics make not a lot of sense, and so it's really hard to remember like what he's singing about when there's not really any reference points. So I don't know, but it's definitely fun.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you are enjoying it. I'm glad that This All Good has been taken off. You guys have been experiencing some success. It's dope that you guys are getting to kind of tour around. As far as like anyone who would be listening, yeah, it's an option. It is a thing. I probably sound like the one who's kind of like, cover bands. But that's honestly just because it's genuine. That is honestly how I do sort of feel about it. I think that it is great if you want to make money. I think it's great if you want to get experience playing. I think a lot of musicians become better players once they enter the cover world because they just play more. They play out more. They play out longer. And you play in a whole bunch of different styles, like was mentioned. So it does kind of increase your dexterity.
Well, and with that, and this is again not a knock to solely original artists, but when you get into the cover scene, you realize all the players are really good because there is a certain standard you have to be at. Yeah, so the good players in the cover scene are just like phenomenal, and now the good players in the original scene are great too, obviously. But if you're at a certain, especially when you're older, if you're like in your 40s and you're still in the original scene and, you know, doing all that stuff, that's awesome. But, you know, I don't know, maybe something hasn't gone a certain way along the way. If you're in your 40s and you're in a cover band, you could be an excellent, excellent guitarist because you're making a full easy living, not easy living, but you know what I mean? You're money-wise, you're making plenty enough money to like live playing in one of these larger cover bands. And especially another benefit to the cover music scene is a little bit of the longevity in some other genres. If you're playing country or if you're playing, you know, even some like, not blues, but like even like some gospel R&B, stuff like that. You can have older cats in there that are just jamming because a lot of it is about the musicality and like that stuff. So I think there are definitely pros and cons.
Even in reggae.
Yeah,
even
exactly.
in reggae, there's a little bit where they're a little bit older. Yeah, so there are pros and cons all over. The thing that I draw to the most that is a con is the thing that most people think is the pro. So it's like a catch-22, and that's the money.
You think the money's a con?
I think the money in the audience is a con because I've seen great musicians even go into the either wedding bands or cover bands. Yeah, wedding bands are cover bands, but it's a little different. Go into that world, get intoxicated by the money, and have no willpower to go back to the original scene. Because it just is. It's like, to just put things frankly, since we were kind of talking very ambiguously earlier when it comes to like monetary value. Like if you're in a cover band and you're in an A tier, you can charge anywhere from, depending on the room, anywhere from $2,500 to $4,000 to play, and
more. I mean, if you're one of the top A bands, you can charge whatever you want, especially on a holiday. And then you can also
charge the door. Like, depending on the venue, you can also charge the door too, or cut out some type of percentage door deal, so you get your guarantee plus also the door. A lot of that has to do with capacity stuff. But anyway, and if you are on your way there, you'll understand this stuff. But
yeah, because we're kind of talking from best case scenario here as well with the cover scene. I'm kind of talking fluently through it. We were very lucky, and more than lucky, just like it just was. A lot of good things happen in the right order to make it happen. So that was awesome. But also, I could sit here and talk for hours about all the years of trying things that didn't work and stuff. This just happened to be the story that is working so far. Maybe I'll sit down with you a year from now and be like, yeah, all that was bull, and it went immediately to disaster after that. No, but yeah. So this is also best case scenario, kind of what I'm talking about right now. But yeah, I definitely get what you're saying with the downside of the money and stuff. For us, I knew from day one that eventually I wanted to be able to go and put out original music, but my original music that I'm putting out is top 40 pop music, so it fits with what we're doing. Right. Exactly. If I was so for example, I'm putting out my first solo song in probably 6 years, finally. All instrumental, crazy stuff that if I could just write whatever I want, this is what I would write. So I played everything on an electric drum set, and it's just very technical, kind of crazy stuff. I'm excited about it. I don't care what it does. I don't care if 5 people listen to it or if 500,000 people. And I genuinely mean that because this is something that I'm just releasing because I had fun creating it, and maybe a couple other people will listen to it and be like, yo, this was fun. I'm not going to sell it. I'm just going to release it. It's all I care about for that. With It's All Good, I care about not the exact opposite, but part of my focus is I want to get it all in as many hands as possible, and I want to get eventually to be able to monetize whatever original music we're putting out there and stuff like that, because It's All Good is, I love doing it. It's also a business. It is my job, and it is what keeps me from having to have another job. Normal job.
Yeah.
Exactly. So even if I want to treat it as that, best case scenario, it is still an awesome job, and all of my jobs are cool. I do that, and then I own the studio, and then I'm the music director at a church. So it's like full time I get to do these musical jobs that I kind of get to work my own schedule around. So it's...
And I want
cool.
to touch on those other things too.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
the whole point of this podcast is really to equip people with the tools that they need, and it doesn't matter what tools they are. Just whichever tools they need for them as individuals to become full-time musicians.
Yes.
So if you want to be a full-time musician and the cover world is your answer, then that's your answer. Then that's where you need to be. That's where you need to live. Because
you also might be the best cover musician ever. That might be your thing, and you might be excellent at that. And I'll tell you the truth, the best cover musician ever is making a lot more money than a lot of the biggest original artists just because of, if you're in one of the biggest cover bands out there, you're making a ton of money. And also, this is another thing, this area is the
Northeast.
best area in the country for cover bands, because it's the only place where I can be in New York, then Philly, then Baltimore, then DC, then Virginia Beach, then Atlantic City, then Ocean City, then every single night a different city. When you're in California, it's like, I'm in LA. Now I'm going to drive hours to get to San Francisco, but I can't build a following because it's hours away, and it's expensive to drive, all that. So people don't realize, if you are going the cover band route and you live in this area, you are in a good spot to live.
This is one of the only places, too, where they actually have really good guarantees.
And casinos everywhere that you can play.
Most places do not have the types of guarantees that we have here.
Exactly.
Even if you're not going to be I'm a big cover band or whatever, but if you just want to get into cover music and you want to be a solo acoustic cover act, the types of guarantees that you can get out of this area, specifically Delaware, is crazy.
Delaware and the beaches. You can, as a solo artist, you could pull $400 a gig and be playing 4 or 5 nights a week if you really wanted to, and that's much more than you'd be able to make doing most other.
And that's only 3 hours out of your day.
Exactly. And as an acoustic artist, it's super easy to set up, play, tear down. And so some people knock that, but the reality is if you're looking to do this as a job and you're just I don't want to work a different job, this is a very, very valid option, because you get to play all the time. Your chops will get even though my voice is tired, I feel like I'm an exponentially better singer than I was even a year ago, just because I get to do it every night. My runs might feel more tired, but they're also a little bit more in the pocket and on key. Yeah, exactly.
Well, your musicality increases. You're saturated in the environment.
And you're playing so many different environments. That helps too.
Learn how to work a crowd. I even think that if you were... This is an option, right? So just as an option, maybe you want to get into... If your ultimate goal is that you don't want to be in a cover band and you do want to do original music and blah, blah, I still think that it is a plus for you to just live in that world for maybe a year or so, because the things that you learn about how to run an audience, how to run a show, how to, you have an audience in front of you. So you understand then how to control the dynamic, how to utilize the energy, and you'll learn how to do it for 3 hours, not just 45 minutes. So you'll really learn how to control and navigate the audience, because some rooms that you play might have 1,000 people in them. As an original artist, it's difficult to be in a room where you have 1,000 people at it. That, especially in the beginning stages. I guess that's the big caveat to mention, is just that in the beginning stages of being in a cover band, you can play a room and at least be playing in front of 200 or 300 people. In the beginning stages of being an original artist, it is very difficult to be playing in front of a few hundred people, unless you get on kind of a festival bill, or you happen to get on a bill with a larger artist, but even then, they might not be there for you.
They're walking around,
exactly.
It's different when they're all right here.
Yeah, and that's another thing too that you want to keep in mind too, is that when you do play cover music, you kind of have more of a passive audience. In the middle, you start to get it's crazy, because it's you have a passive audience, but then once you really get a draw, let's say your Go-Go Gadget.
Yeah.
you kind of have a captive audience to some degree at that point.
Always.
You know, you kind of, like, it changes. But in an original scene, most of the time, you're always kind of operating within a captive audience.
Yep.
And I know that for some people that bothers them. Like, I don't want to be on stage and playing music, and then people are just kind of talking through my set or drinking. Or,
But that's why but to me, when I hear that, that's your job as an artist to captivate them. What do I do? Yeah. Okay, they're not paying attention. Well, why? If the music is good, then it's got to be something else. If you guys haven't seen It's All Good live, you should definitely check it out.
Definitely go check
definitely
it out.
address it. Well, it's a fun. If I was not in the band, I would still think it was a fun experience because my whole goal is to make it a fun experience. So that's the whole point of our name.
You're also pretty wild too.
We do backflips, we swing from the ceilings, we do tons of stuff. But that is because I understand most of our audience is drunk, and they should be. It's going to be a fun time. It's fine. But what is the drunk person going to remember the next day that will stand out? They wake up, they say, "Oh my gosh, I saw this couple. Oh my gosh, remember that guy did a backflip?" Or, "Oh my," and these are little gimmicks that I don't think everybody has to do. But for me, I want it so that the next day they remember, and then they pull our business card that I gave them out of the pocket, and they look us up, and they follow us online. And also because people come for those things. You don't realize that, but they might not be the biggest music fan, but somebody's like, "Yo, no, this band is, you're gonna have fun. You're gonna have a fun time."
Yeah.
And that's what we try to do, and we try to mash up a little bit of everything from the 70s till now. I wear very, very flamboyant and fancy clothes on stage that I don't wear normally, and that's for a couple reasons. One, it's part of the show. Two, it's when I dress up as a character, I'm able to perform way better. I was never a singer growing up, like in a band setting. I was always the drummer, but I was always doing musical theater. So when I could put myself in this other mindset, it's so much easier to control a crowd in that way. So that really helps. But then also, it's, again, people will wake up the next morning and be like, "Oh my gosh, that guy had gold shoes," or little things like that could be corny if done the wrong way, but if you sell it the correct way, look at Prince, look at Michael Jackson, look at any of these big.
Captivating.
Nobody was looking at them and saying like, "What?"
Oh, that's their style. That's their swag.
Exactly.
That becomes their swag.
If my ultimate goal is to achieve that level, not saying that I will, but if that's our ultimate goal as a musician is to achieve that high level or high standard, then why am I not performing that way?
Right.
So,
especially when it's like fortunately, the luxury that you do get being a cover artist is that everyone knows the songs. Mm-hmm. They're gonna sing along. So the hardest thing to have good as an artist is always the songs. Like you live or die by your songs. You can't be a great artist with like a crap song. Yep. So the good thing is that you have good songs. Mm-hmm. You have nothing but hits, and you have nothing but hits that everyone knows. So you do get to focus in on performing. Like, how do I engage you? How do I perform? The song is already locked in. It's good. It's not like you're going to do a set and it's going to be like, "Ooh, that song sucks."
Yes, but to pause there, that with song choice, that is a very important thing because there are a lot of artists that you'll hear that are pretty good, but they've just picked songs that either don't fit them well or, don't flow in the set. Like, you could have great songs, but if they're in the wrong order, it's not going to achieve the same dynamic range. Right. So yes, I get what you're saying with you're already playing hits, but make sure if you're playing a song and like 3 or 4 nights in a row, people aren't responding to it, cut it. You got a million other songs. And you know what? You can always go back to it later. Who knows, like Africa, I'm sure tons of cover bands played that back in the day, and then nobody played it for a while, and now everybody plays it again. So there are songs like that. There are other songs like Stacy's Mom. It will always be a hit. It will, no matter where it is, unless it's like, I guess, like some biker bar or something like that. For the most part,
more urban place.
But even, you'd be surprised, like, that is a song that just, even if people don't know the verse, as soon as the chorus comes on, no matter where you're playing. But maybe that's the type of song, that's another thing we didn't talk about.
With mash up?
Yeah, with cover music, we mash everything up. You do. The formula I've found that works the best is intro, maybe a little intro, but right into the verse, chorus. If it's a real big chorus, maybe double chorus. If it's a bridge that is like a memorable part of the song that people like, so like Mr. Brightside or like things like that, like songs where like that has that hook, then hit that, but then get to the next song. Right. There are a few songs we will do the whole thing to, like 24 Karat Magic, stuff like that, where it's just like, the whole song's gonna like slam, but like for the most part, we just get to the point and then move on, because then you're able to play so many more songs. You don't
yeah.
have to a lot of times the hardest part about memorizing a song is the order and all the extra chords, because verse 2 changes slightly, so if you're just learning one verse, one chorus, you can also learn way more. Yeah, you can learn so many songs so quickly. So I don't know, and it's fun. Like we'll be driving in the car, and like I'll hear a song, and then I'm like singing another song over it in my head, and I'm like,
yeah,
so I could
take
like when I have subscriptions to DJ services where I can get just the vocals from a track or just the synth lines or any of that. So I make all our tracks, and I can, for the most part, kind of
for
build
anyone
them.
Listening and doesn't understand what he's referring to like backtracks.
Backtracks. So like say what's a good example? Like, oh, I want to dance with somebody or something like that. You have like the synths coming in, or the strings in I Want You Back, or things like that. It's the same way that DJs work, and it works under the same licenses and stuff that DJs would do. But I can do that so that if we're playing something and I need to front, but I still need a synth part, it can come in through the backing tracks. And now, some people hate on this stuff. I can tell you firsthand, as a musician, you have to be a tight musician to play with backing tracks, because after 83 clicks, this is going to come in, and so you can't be one click off. So I mean, and all the tightest musicians do it, all different ways, but like any big band, for the most part, that you're going to see is going to have some sort of track. Sometimes it's triggered by a pad, sometimes it's a laptop, sometimes it's a keyboard, lots of different ways. But for us, I mean, I make these clicks that you start, and it's 45 minutes of nonstop. And if somebody messes up, you keep going, and the other 3 people cover for you. So, and actually, so the other day when we were in Boston, 1,000 people there, huge crowd, and all of a sudden we're in the middle of this set, 19 minutes in, and it just starts from the beginning again. The click just goes back to the beginning of the track, and we're like, oh my gosh, because how are you going to even find that? So we got to a point where we could pause, and I just said to someone, I said, hey, can we mute the tracks real quick? Just mute the tracks real quick. And then they fixed it, so it wasn't coming in the house. Lloyd figured out, okay, well, it was around here. He found exactly where it was. Murat heard it. He came in, we covered it, and while he was doing that, I just talked about the band. So they didn't know. It gave me a chance. In our 43-minute set, I don't normally have too much time to talk about the band because it's one song to the next. So I talked about the band a little bit. He gave me the thumbs up, and the sound guy just, instead of just unmuting him, just brought him back up in the mix, and it sounded like it faded in, and we went back in. Now, granted, that was as smooth as it could have went. There was a million ways that could have went way horribly. You're panicking on stage, like this is the nightmare that you always fear of with doing the tracks. But it worked out.
And what's nice though is that you have musicians in your band, and unfortunately, there are some bands who don't. So I think that's where backtracks got a bad name. Backtracks are dope. They got a bad name because people started to hide behind them. You had musicians who were not high caliber musicians cheating using backtracks, and then it kind of gave it a bad name where it's like, oh, well, you're not really playing that, but it's like, no. In your situation, your band has musicians in it. So even if they couldn't get the tracks back up, it'd be like, all right, whatever. We can still play all of this stuff.
We
can
exactly.
still play the music.
Exactly. But it's just nice, like, so when we do 24 Karat Magic, we sample the little intro, tonight. So do we need that? No. But as soon as it hits, everybody knows what song is about to come, and it's like, it's exciting. So yeah, definitely. But the one that, I mean, if you're playing with backing tracks, the drummer does have to be on. If you're playing with tracks that have like drum parts in it, and like electronic drum parts especially, and your drummer's not tight, you're gonna know. But if you got a tight drummer that's right in the pocket with those drum tracks, it can sound phenomenal. So, but I don't know, man. I enjoy doing it. I like writing the mashups. I think it's a good thing that you should experiment at least a little bit with. Yeah, definitely don't hide behind it. I will say we use a lot of backing tracks, probably more than necessarily would like, but not more than I would like. I just, it's what sounds really good for what we need live. Some songs we use no backing tracks. Some songs we just have a tambourine, and some songs, we're essentially playing over top of like an instrumental version of the song because it's almost all synthesizers, and we want it all in there. So what we add.
Do you have a synth player?
What's up?
Do you have a synth player?
I play synths, but I also a lot of times am fronting, so it just depends. And sometimes I'll have the synth in the backing track, and I'm playing the same exact chord voicings, but with a different patch. And I'm blending it together. Because a lot of times my keys might not be ran through the sub as much, but the synth patch I put in the backing tracks, I specifically made to have that sub frequency in there. There's some parts where we have a bass track in the backing tracks, but it's a synth bass. That by itself might sound too synthetic, But with the bass by itself, the bass sounds too hollow. When you combine the synth bass coming on the track with what he's actually playing live,
nice
you get
lush
this
sound.
big live sound. Yeah, so don't hide behind your tracks, but also some people are like, well, I don't want to do anything, I can't. Ultimately, you want whatever sounds best live. At least that's my opinion. If your goal is to bring in as much of an audience as you can, you ultimately want whatever sounds best live without necessarily sacrificing your musicianship or your musicality.
Right.
I don't think that anyone could come out to an It's All Good show and like be sad about our musicianship. Hopefully not. I'm sure
it depends on what you're selling too. That's a big thing.
Exactly.
Like some bands are selling the fact that it's like, yo, their musicians are fire. You know, if you're Dirty Loops, you're selling that your musicians are fire.
Absolutely.
You know, like that's okay. That's what you're selling. What you're not selling then is probably a light show and production value. You know, because that's going to distract from the fact that the musicians are fire. You know, like so there's different packages. It's like, you know, there's a reason why they make Frosted Flakes and Corn Flakes and stuff. Like different people like different things.
Different strokes for different folks. Yeah, definitely. Exactly.
But I wanted to also touch on, since we were kind of in that area, the other things that you do, because you were doing like the Andover Media thing.
Yeah,
right?
so I had Andover Media for a while. I actually sold that to a buddy of mine who kind of took over all that, and it's much more of like a video company now. It used to be Andover Recording. I still have a studio, and I'm going to be announcing like the name of all that and everything soon. The problem is I'm just so busy, I don't want to take on any new clients yet. I have still like a waiting list. I am still recording some bands, but I used to love recording bands because I was single, and so like having a bunch of dudes stay at my house for like 2 weeks and like party and like do all that. It was fun. It's fun. Now I'm like past that, and so like.
Congratulations on being married.
Oh yeah, she's awesome. Yeah, my wife is great. We've been married 2 years now almost. But now I love ghostwriting. Most of what I do is ghostwriting for pop artists, metal artists, all kinds of stuff. And then I can just sit in my studio and work, and it's so nice. And so I love doing that. I do that during the day a lot. I do some like commercial music scoring, like you were talking about and stuff. I still do produce, but it's mostly the only albums I take on are albums that are going to be worth the amount of. When I first, and this is something that hopefully is a problem that everybody eventually has when you're doing music. When I first started doing music, my problem was that I had no money but tons of time. So I was trying to fill all my time so that I could start making money. Now, once you do music long enough, you kind of have enough streams of reliable income from different little sources because you've been doing it. Yeah, you're not really making a ton from this or a ton from, but it's enough that like throughout the month you're making a living doing music. And once that happens, then the problem is you have not plenty of money, but you have like enough money to pay your bills and stuff. But now your time is just like very much more regimented. You have to kind of schedule everything in much more. So for me, I'm taking on projects that I enjoy putting the time into because I know it will be worth it in the long. I'll learn from it. I'll, make a really good. It's an album that I know I'll be able to make sound good by the end. So if a band comes to me and they're like, "Yo, this is what we've written. This is what we want to record." Like blah 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 blah. It's all right music. I'll recommend them to somebody else because I don't have time for that right now. If somebody comes to me and says, "Look, we're a band and here's our budget and we have like demos, ideas, but we want you to just write this album with us," then I'm much more likely to take it on because I know I'll be able to make it into something that I feel comfortable putting out at this point. I have no reason, I don't have a need to like be promoting myself as a producer right now. Maybe eventually I will, but right now I'm focusing on the band. A few years ago, that was much more what I was into, and the band was kind of like a secondary thing, but now it's kind of, I really like being a performer, and 10 years from now I'll be a little older and stuff. So for right now,
change then.
Yeah. So for right now, I'm just gonna focus on that and like do backflips all I can.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean?
And the church thing. So what about? How did you get into that? Like into the church scene? Were you just always kind of like? First of all, I guess I should ask, what do you do for the church? Are you performing for them?
No. So it's a very very strange story. Probably one of the weirdest. Like my life is a movie stories, but when I was growing up, when I was a little kid, I went to this church, Glasgow Reformed Presbyterian Church, it's right by Route 40. If you're coming in on 896 and People's Plaza is like right in front of you, and you like turned It's like that big church on your left. It's called Reach Church now.
Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So I went there growing up, and it was cool because as a little kid, I would see the worship team and see the people working there and just be like, oh my gosh, that'd be insane to do that and all that stuff. And then I went to college. For my beginning of college career was for kind of worship and like that stuff. I wanted to be a worship leader. Weirdly enough, through my college career, I actually walked away from religion entirely and actually kind of became very angry at it a little because growing up I was very, very fundamentalist to the point where, I mean, I was homeschooled up till 10th grade, then I went to private Christian school, and not that there's anything wrong about that, but there was just a lot of things, like my high school taught me that the world was a couple thousand years old, and so when I got to college I was like, oh wait, what? So all these things led up, and then all of a sudden I got
some relearning.
Yeah, exactly. But then I got kind of angry for a little while, but then I ended up recording. So the church hired me just as an outside private contractor to record their album. They had some original songs, and they knew me as a producer in the area because I had went there when I was younger and all that stuff. And the album turned out really good. And at that point, they kind of talked to me about doing some sound there on the side, like mixing for Sunday. And at this point, I had kind of I was not a religious person, but I was not an anti-religious person either. I had come to realize, oh, there's a lot of good that this stuff does, and a lot of people find a lot of joy in this, and oh, okay, there's a reason it's around and that people need it. So, I started doing that and then realizing oh, these people are awesome, and so now I've been there for a while, and it ended up being that I guess about a year later they came in and asked me to be the music director, which is different. They actually have a worship director that's separate. So my only job is to make the band sound, not only job, but my main job is to make the band and everything sound good, to work on the harmonies that we're singing, to work on the chord voicings, what drum beat is going on here, the bass part, kind of writing a little bit of some mashups a little bit as well as
music directing.
Yeah, exactly, music directing. But I don't do anything on stage. Sometimes I do sing from the back of the church. Actually, I'll have a mic, and if somebody's sick or not feeling good that day, I'll sing a harmony
fill in the part.
Fill in something. But my mic, I can sing it in the house. I can sing it in their ears. So if I just need to sing them a harmony, they're not singing it right. Little things like that. So it's just kind of putting all that together. But it's been awesome. The community they have there is great. They're open to lots of great and wonderful discussions. So it's been really cool to kind of be back in that community and work with those people there. They also have really wonderful equipment and stuff that I get to work with every week, and
so that's a really dope thing too. I think that it's if it's okay with you, if you are okay with working for a church or whatever, and you don't have any hang-ups for working with a church, I think that it's personally a great thing to do, just because they tend to have resources that you may not have yourself.
Definitely.
So you really you can put in some time working behind some great equipment, or working with people, or just even in the environment where you don't necessarily have to have. Most other places, let's say it's a school or a university or whatever, they're going to want some kind of experience. The great thing with your church is that it's a very safe place to just kind of get involved and get the experience without having any prior experience. So I love that you've diversified so much. So for people listening, I think that should be the biggest thing that you really kind of took out of this entire conversation, is just Aaron's a full-time musician, and he's been able to get that way through you've done the work, man. You've put in the work. You've done the original thing. You've drumming for somebody else's band and touring, and then starting your own thing, doing the original thing, then the cover band scene, then the media company, and the music directing at a church and stuff. Sometimes you're going to have to diversify. What's beautiful about that, though, is that all of that was still in the arts creative. I think one of the things I really try to press on to people is it's great to diversify, and you probably need to, but make sure you're still diversifying with it, that everything kind of serves everything else.
For sure.
If you were just I also was construction worker or something like that. It's yes, that does solve the money problem. So for anyone who is a construction worker, and also that's fine. I'm just saying, if you can find a way to subsidize that income by doing the art, the thing that you want to do, try to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Music used to be my hobby, but now that it's my job, other things are my hobby. Playing ping pong, doing things like that. You know what I mean? It's so. But also to point with something you were saying earlier, you said you have to have the right tools. And that's kind of what my whole philosophy was when I first got out of school. I was paying all these people money for mixing and recording and all this music videos and all this stuff. And I was just thinking, well, why can they do this and I can't? Well, I just haven't took the time to learn it. If I can learn it, then I can do it. Yeah, exactly. So now I make music videos for people, lyric videos, things like that. But you were saying it's about having the right tools. I think it's also about having as many tools as you can in your toolbox, even if you don't ever use them, because you might use them.
Right.
If you come see It's All Good Live, I play 9 different instruments on stage at some point. Now, I'd say 7 or 6 of them, I don't play well. I play just good enough for our live show.
Right, yeah.
But I learned it for that, just so that I can use it for that. But I don't need them in normal situations, but I'm glad that I learned that. I took a little time to learn the trumpet. I took a little bit, because who knows, also maybe 20 years from now, or I mean not even 20 years from now, there's times in the studio where I need a trumpet part. I'm not a good trumpet player, but I'm a good engineer and an editor, so I can play I can play a couple notes and slice it together and make it at least good enough to pass until I can get somebody else to come in and track it for me for real.